Okay, you are live.
Good afternoon and welcome to the September 24th meeting of the Downtown Development Authority. Heather, if you could take the roll call, please.
Dewan,
Present.
Kroom,
Present, sorry.
Kruger,
Here.
Lahanas,
Present.
Mayor Stevens,
Here.
Ballline,
Here.
Clark. Here. Hackney,
Present.
Levinson,
Present.
Smith,
We're here.
roll call is complete.
Great, thank you. We have the agenda as presented by staff. Are there any changes to our agenda? Adam? No? Okay.
Sir.
I'll move to approve the agenda as presented. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Support and aye.
Great.
Aye.
Thanks, Jim. Any opposed? Seeing none, the agenda's been approved and supported. We have the minutes from our August 27th meeting. Are there any changes to the minutes?
No, sir.
See-
No, sir.
Okay, seeing none, move to approve the minutes as presented and ask for support. Supported by Luke Hackney. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
The minutes have been approved. We have our requirement of extending 5 minutes pursuant to MCL 15.263 for public comment. Ask for support to continue that. Supported by Luke. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you.
I think Jeff's child actually voted for him. Right?
That's 2 votes, 1.5 votes.
Yeah, we may need that vote on additional items. We have our financial. Adam, are you going to be going?
Oh, that will be me.
Oh, I'm sorry, Heather.
That's okay. So the June financial report, as you know, we keep on bringing this back as long as there are some changes. There was just one additional expense that came through, was a minor expense charged to our project development fund, and it was related to the outdoor dining that was along Albert Avenue. As you know, the DDA had allocated $20,000 for those expenses. So that project has wrapped up. So our June report, at this point, we will not bring that back until the audit is complete. And at that point, we will ask the board to approve it. So any questions on the June financial report? Okay, moving on to the August financial report. Pretty much we haven't had a whole lot of expenses yet. Any expenses, again, were related to the outdoor dining as that carried over into July and August of this year. A couple things I do want to point out is, if you recall, our Grand River Sidewalk project wrapped up in August. And so we did close out that PO, which we had come in under budget on that project. So an additional $14,678.50 was then reallocated back to our projects to be determined line item in our budget. So that now stands at $79,623.50. And then the other thing I wanted to point out is on the outdoor dining, the board, as I said earlier, did allocate $20,000. There was actually it went over the $20,000. And you can see on the report, it shows we were over by $1,599.22. And we'll be doing a journal entry to correct that. So next month, you'll see that it is balances and that there's no overages in there. So any questions on the August financial report? Okay.
Thank you, Heather. Seeing none, we'll move on to written communications. We have just the one recommendation that we made to council on the Walgreens Item 3.1, if members will take note. At this time, I would like to open up the meeting for communications from the audience. Is there anyone wishing to address the Downtown Development Authority?
So we have 9 attendees. So attendees, I will be reading off the last 3 numbers of your phone number. If you would like to speak, you can speak at that time. If you choose not to speak, you can just say pass. The first caller, I'm going to unmute. Your last 3 numbers are 653, 653. You have 5 minutes to speak. Caller 653, you must have yourself muted. I'm unable to unmute you. If you'd like to speak, please hit *6. Okay, we will pass on that. Next.
Can you hear?
Oh, there you go. We can hear you. 653.
This is 653. This is Reshma Sambari from Hello Canfield. I'm here just to attend the meeting. I have no comment. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next caller, last 3 digits are 448. You will be unmuted and allowed to speak. Go ahead. Caller with the last 3 digits, 448. Would you like to speak?
Heather, I actually don't see them in the room. I think 653 is still in here. Is that accurate, or am I?
Yeah, I still see.
653 is muted, and I'm allowed to talk 448.
Okay.
Let's move on to the next caller if we could.
Move on. Next caller, ending in the last 3 digits, 100.
Pass. Thank
They passed.
Yep. Next caller, ending in 573. You will be unmuted.
This is Brian Crenshaw from the England County Commissioners. I was just invited to the meeting, so I'm listening in.
All right, thank you.
Welcome.
Next caller, ending in 963. You've been unmuted.
Hi, this is Alice Dreger. Just 2 quick items. One, you have on your agenda a suggestion about paving part of Sharp Park to put in more bike lanes, bike parking, sorry. I am somebody who bikes downtown a lot, so I love having bike parking, but I don't think paving over the last little bit of green space more is the best idea, so I wanted to provide some suggestions. As you know, the Abbott is complete and has new bike parking along Abbott Road, which is great. MSU-FCU was just approved, and they're going to have bike parking along there, which is great. So there'll actually be a fair bit of bike parking right in that immediate area. What we don't have is bike parking along the Center City project on the Albert Avenue side. I went back and looked at the site plans and discovered that we were promised just under 300 bike parking spaces for that project per the code. But it turns out all of those bike parking spaces are in an interior room locked to everybody except the Harbor Bay tenants. So they're on the first floor of the parking garage across from the parking office, but it's not open to the public. So that's actually incorrect according to the zoning code. There's supposed to be an outdoor bike parking. And as I understand it from Mr. Fehrenbach, there's a plan from the city to add some bike loops along Albert Avenue in front of the new retail businesses, which I think would be fine. It puts the last nail in the coffin of the Woonarf idea, but that would be a good location for them. But I wanted to suggest that actually the pedestrian tunnel that goes from Albert Avenue to Target is actually wide enough to put a couple of racks in there. And that would be great because it would provide us the indoor, well, not indoor, but it would provide us the covered bike parking that we thought we were going to get out of this. And I think would be very inviting to people bicycling down to the new retail shops. Harbor Bay has the Saucer Coffee and Barrio Tacos, and would also be very inviting in terms of biking to Target. So I think in the tunnel would work really well. The other thing is along the alley, there are some spaces where bicycle racks can go, although the disadvantage of that is I think a lot of bicyclists might not know if there was parking in the alley. but I'm hoping we could not pave over Sharp Park more and could locate bicycle parking elsewhere. Secondly, I believe if my timing is correct, your next scheduled meeting is where you basically have the River Caddis agreement running out. And in the past, the DDA has often been put in the position of getting a new agreement at the last minute and being forced to vote on it at the last minute. So I was hoping you would actually be able to discuss that today so that you would know what's coming, so you could all begin to have some discussion of it. But even if you can't do that, I would like you to, if possible, get the material well in advance so that the DDA members are not caught in the position of having to examine a fairly complex legal agreement. What we have in terms of the last proposal from River Caddis, which is not voted through, asks for something like 450 days of another exclusive agreement, so a year and a half more. Also asks for a substantial TIF. So I think it's going to be a really important thing for the DDA to consider, and I want to make sure you have enough time to read it before you converse on it, and also have enough time to make a decision and not have to be voting the day before the agreement expires. That's all. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Okay, next caller, Don Wilski. You are allowed to talk. Don Wilski, you have been unmuted.
Sir, you might have to still unmute on your screen.
I am. He's not unmuting. He must have himself muted.
Oh,
Yeah.
Don Wilski?
Yeah, no comments. Just representing the college as the college's CFO. So thank you.
Okay. Next person is Ty Christensen. I'm going to unmute you and you'll be allowed to talk. Ty Christensen, you are unmuted.
I have no
He's-
comments at the time. I'm
he is
just here
just- okay.
representing CATA.
All right. Next caller, Matthew Nelson.
Pass.
Next caller, Michael Homier.
Pass.
And next caller, Ronald Liscombe.
I have no comments. Thank you.
That is all the public comment.
Okay, thank you everyone for calling in. We will close the public comment portion of the meeting. Are there any communications from staff?
Yes, Chair, just one brief one. MSU FCU was approved by council on Tuesday night and plan to break ground in January of 21.
Great, thank you. We'll move on to item 6 on our agenda, informational meeting, 6.1 DDA projects, programs, and activities. Adam?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So pursuant to Public Act 57, the DDA is required to hold 2 informational meetings to share projects completed over the last year and discuss future plans for any projects within the DDA district. These meetings occur twice per year. The taxing jurisdictions have been invited to attend this meeting, which several have indicated they're on the phone listening in. So just quickly, I wanted to highlight some projects and activities that were accomplished over the previous fiscal year. Significant one was business support, the business relief program that DDA authorized funding for to support the businesses financially that have been negatively impacted by COVID. The open air dining on Albert that occurred this past summer. And then the support of license fees waivers and funding to the DMB for marketing and business support activities. All of this was related to COVID-19. And then some major projects completed, obviously the Center City Park District, and then the Evergreen RFQP went out and the response from River Caddis for Citadel was received. Moving forward, going to continue the business support programming, and then the ongoing maintenance of the Evergreen properties, and then the installation of bike loops throughout the downtown. And then, of course, major projects, the MSU, FCU, and a Citadel proposal for Evergreen properties. And with that, Heather or I could take any questions.
Thank you, Adam. Are there any questions of board members or staff? Thank you. Quite a long list there. Thank you, Adam. We'll move on to our business agenda, item 7.1, consideration of an application to modify a site plan and special use permit from Gateway of East Lansing LLC. Adam?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. So an application to modify the special use permit from Gateway LLC was submitted at the property for 300 West Grand River. This would be to convert the existing retail space on the first floor into 6 dwelling units. The property is zone B2, which is retail sales within the business district. And Jake Parcell is on the line if there are any questions.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jake Parcell. I'm one of the planners here on staff. So Adam summed it up pretty well. This is just to change the western first floor portion of the building from vacant retail to 6 dwelling units. There's really not many exterior changes other than putting in some windows there. The entrance to the units will be through the lobby. That is, I believe, the leasing area for the building. Other than that, it's modifying the SUP because it used to be designated as non-residential space. Now it's being converted to residential. They just were through and received permission to convert the area on the eastern portion of the building to a fitness center. But other than that, I think the only thing that Planning Commission really had as a relevant comment is they would like to see a condition of approval added for the addition of 1 parking space on site. Planning Commission reviewed this last night. They did not take action on it. That will be at the next meeting. Other than that, I'm open for questions from anyone.
So I have a question. It's presently in non-conformance with the number of parking spots required. Is that correct?
Yeah, by my calculations, there's 62 parking spaces on site. 63 are required, given the 2 modifications to the special use permit. The parking here is relatively unique. There's parking on the top, the surface level for the fitness center and for the Big B and for the leasing office, but all the residential parking requires a pass to park below grade. So I think they're locked into having 1 less spot than they should. We'll address that in our staff report once we have some time to look into it and review it again with Planning Commission at our next meeting.
This is Jeff.
Okay.
Why did the Planning Commission not take action last evening?
They had a couple notes about what they wanted to see in the staff report. Really, one was to go back and see if any of the units meet low income or 55 and up requirements, and to verify the universal design criteria, and then to address the parking question. But other than that, they held the public hearing, and then we moved on to the other applications.
Thank you. Jeff, you had a question? Jeff?
That was my question, Peter. And then is there any feasible way of getting another parking spot on this site that's dedicated to them?
I don't think so. The parking was built in when the original project was completed in 2015. So with the changes, the parking was calculated for having retail on the first floor, and then the residential units above it. And then with the changes to that, the parking calculations kind of have adjusted based on our calculation for the efficiency units and for the fitness center.
So the developer is really taking a risk on converting retail in a time like this to residential, recognizing that those residential units are going to be essentially without parking.
I mean, it's only a difference of one space. So I
But
think
4
that
units, right?
there's what?
There's 4 units, right?
6 units.
6 units. So 6 units in one space.
The difference from what is required based on my calculations for the uses that will be in the building and the uses or the parking that's already on site is only one space. So it's not one space for 6 units, it's one space difference in what's there and what is required.
I got you. Thank you.
Yep.
Are there additional questions? George?
So Jake, I kind of got the sense that this has been a broad policy to activate streets and not have in the downtown and not have residential on first floors. Are there other areas where we've recently allowed first floor residential? I mean, isn't this kind of a change in direction from the overall B3 or from the whole downtown district is to have sort of activated uses and storefronts and commercial?
Yeah, so this isn't a B2 district, just on the fringe of B3. Since I've started here, none of the other kind of mixed use buildings that have come into question with a vacancy on the first floor have been transitioned to residential. Similar ones can include the one down at Bogue and Grand River and the one on 550 Michigan. Neither of those have put residential on the first floor. This is I think the first time I've seen this. You're correct there.
It just, I mean, I'm just concerned for me because it seems like, we would be going away. I mean, people would put residential anywhere we could put residential. And I think that if we sort of go away from this model of having activated storefronts and commercial downstairs, that this kind of has broader implications. I know it's at the edge of the district there, but
yeah,
it concerns me from that perspective. And also, not that it's going to be a problem, but when we've had problems first floor residential, because it can sort of, the activity can spill out more easily into the street. And that's an area of near the new Taco Bell, I think it's Stonehouse Village 1, where the doors open up to the street. And that has caused some concern at times.
Yeah. To address that, the applicant from the first time it came through until now has taken away the doors to the exterior of the units on the street. And now there's only one area to enter, which is through the lobby. So I think that was the plan to kind of help alleviate some of the street traffic into and out of the units. They're converting doors to windows there now, and then they'll just have the one area of entrance, which is a hallway in the middle of the suites there.
This is Jeff, if I may.
Yeah, Jeff, go ahead.
I definitely understand the concern. A vacancy in retail on the first floor over a prolonged period can have just as negative impact, if not worse, than the potential of what you might be facing if residential ends up being in that place. Bob Gibbs and Meridian Township are facing this right now with their downtown Okemos or Okemos Village project, converting what would be in the development a lot of retail and commercial space on the first floor to residential. And the Urban Land Institute is coming out with new guidelines for more or less coupling residential with mixed use and retail options on the first floor to create a more dynamic community or downtown environment rather than having this monolithic retail first floor strip throughout the downtown. So there is evidence that it would be a positive in the future.
Jake, question for you. Oh,
yeah.
Sorry. I'm Chair, if it's all right with you.
Yeah. Go ahead, Mayor.
Is there any indication, and I ask this question most times, and I at least understand that there might not be a response, any indication what the price point would be for these efficiency units?
No, not to staff knowledge.
Okay.
Thank you. Jim?
First question, what's the timing on this? Will we have the benefit of the Planning Commission completing its deliberations prior to our decision?
So the next Planning Commission meeting is October 14th. It's anticipated at that time they'll take action on it.
And then we would have a meeting between that time and the time City Council takes a look at it. And then, okay, so not critical for today, I guess. Was there any research done on what the asking price was on the commercial? In other words, were the price points reasonable? We've heard this question in other developments as far as residential units being priced as at a point where some folks believe it's excessive, and that sort of is a barrier to tenants renting. And so I'm wondering if we looked into what they were charging and felt it was reasonable there. And to George's point, we are, I guess, just to the west of here, we do have townhouses that have first floor that are two-story residences and don't have commercial on the ground floor. So I've got an open mind on that piece of it. But do we know about the rental prices and whatever's they made?
No, I generally, from our zoning perspective, we don't look into the cost of it. I mean, we can, if you guys want us to make note, and we can try and update Heather and Adam and Tom on that to include in the next correspondence, but I don't know.
Maybe
that, so I'd have to find out.
Yeah, if the planning commission finds that relevant, maybe the applicant can address it at the planning commission meeting.
Okay.
Luke?
Take note.
Luke, you're muted.
What am I, an old man?
Not yet.
Yeah, right. Just to speak anecdotally on that, I can't offer a lot of evidence on that, but I do know I did have friends that were trying to get into that building, and they did think it was perfectly reasonably priced. That was not a concern of theirs at all. In fact, they were just hindered by the limitations of the SUPs on the building, just the inability to be open later.
So can we wait and defer? Do we need action now? Should we defer this until after the planning commission? It might be insightful to hear what the planning commission says on sort of the overall direction of what this means for the downtown. I understand it's at the end of the downtown or the edge of the commercial district and adjacent to the townhouses, like was mentioned, but they did successfully have a Big B's. They did just expand their fitness areas to the first floor. So it seems like they've gotten some progress here. So I'm not necessarily inclined to want to go with residential right away, but
I think, yeah, George, thank you. I think my inclination is to allow the planning commission to have a formal response to a number of the questions that they offered last night. You know, I'm clearly supportive of making certain that the space is utilized. I'm not inclined to want to necessarily favor residential over retail, but I think there's still some questions that need to be answered. And notwithstanding some of the questions that the Planning Commission asked with regard to low to moderate income housing. So I think there's enough of items that need to be addressed, and perhaps staff can direct the developer of some of the comments that have been expressed today. And we'll have a subsequent opportunity to weigh in on this before it goes to council and after the Planning Commission's had a review, if everyone's in agreement to that. Okay. So I don't know if we need to even really take any formal action other than we will look forward to having additional conversations at our next DDA meeting on this item. Okay. Is there anyone else that wishes to comment on that item?
Yeah, should we take a motion and defer to a next date certain, or is that a better action, or do you want it? Can we just leave it as is?
Well, if we do nothing, it just simply stays on our agenda as unfinished business.
Okay, I'm good.
Okay. Any additional comments or thoughts? Hearing none, then let's move on to item 7.2 on our agenda, which is the consideration of an agreement with regard to legal services. Adam?
Yes, Chair. Just a quick recap of timeline here. Back on June 18th, the DDA approved a draft RFP for staff to issue. That RFP was issued on June 24th. However, we received only 2 responses by the deadline. And so city staff extended the deadline to August 4th, in which we received a total of 4 responses. The respondents are listed below. On August 20th, staff presented a summary of the responses to the DDA Executive and Finance Committee. The committee discussed waiting until after City Council made their legal services selection before making a selection of their own. On September 3rd, City Council selected Foster and Swift and approved a contract with Foster and Swift on September 22nd. So based on the city's selection of Foster and Swift to represent the city, staff recommends Foster and Swift as a firm to represent both the DDA and BRA to provide primary routine legal services at a rate of $225 per hour. In addition, the DDA and BRA indicated their desire to have separate legal counsel from the city to support complex redevelopment projects and other matters. So staff continued their evaluation of the responses received from the RFQP. And after that evaluation, staff has recommended that the DDA and BRA retain Miller Canfield to provide those supplemental legal services. This recommendation was based on several factors, including the depth of their experience, their expertise, knowledge of the East Lansing development landscape, and the existing relationship with the DDA and BRA. Miller Canfield was also willing to negotiate their fees and come down from $350 per hour to $295 per hour. So with that, staff had a motion for consideration for the DDA. That motion would be to approve the agreement with Foster and Swift for legal services and direct staff to negotiate an agreement with Miller Canfield for supplemental legal services as outlined in their response to the RFP, with the modification of their fee for services to $295 per hour, and authorize the chairperson to execute the agreements as reviewed by council. That will help expedite some things. So with that, we can take any questions, and I believe representatives from both Foster and Swift and Miller Canfield are on the phone as well.
Thank you for the summary, Adam. Jim,
I will move. I will move that motion, Adam, as described, for purposes of discussion.
Yeah, I'll support that as well. Discussion on the motion or discussion in general. Any board members wishing to offer a comment? I'd like to just say before we take any action on this, I'm appreciative of all 4 firms that responded to our RFP. Everyone brought their own area of expertise and capabilities, and we're appreciative of their formal submissions. I appreciate staff's review of the firms that had responded to the RFP. And again, we deferred to the council to take action, which I think was helpful with regard to how we wanted to proceed as well. Any comments before we take action on the motion that's been moved and supported?
This is Jeff.
Jeff? Go ahead.
Just curious on if it's been determined yet who on the bench at Miller Canfield would most likely represent us as kind of the primary.
Adam, can you respond to that, or is a representative from Miller Canfield?
Yeah, I believe a representative from Miller Canfield is on the line.
Ronald Liscombe from Miller Canfield is on the line. I can unmute him.
Please do.
Mr. Liscombe?
Hi, good afternoon, Mr. Chair and board members. How are you today?
Good, thank you.
Good. Hi, yes. I was lead along with my partner, Reshma Sambar, who is also on the line. She, I know, called in. the last few digits of her cell phone are 653. Reshma is my real estate partner, so she would be lead on most of the real estate work. We do thank you for obviously having the opportunity to submit a proposal, and would look forward to working with you. I don't have much more to add on that, but I would like to turn it over to Reshma to provide her input on that.
Can everyone hear me? I'm getting a lot of feedback on my line, unfortunately. This is Reshma Sambare.
We can hear you, yes.
Okay, very good. Well, hello, everyone. Good afternoon. And Ron and I will definitely, as we were listed on the proposal, we will be co-leading this engagement, but I will be taking the lead on all real estate matters based in our Lansing office. And we have a team, of course, based on the type of the project and the type of services that will be needed on a project-by-project basis. We will staff our team accordingly. But if it is, let's say, environmental due diligence, we have our environmental attorneys located in Lansing office also. We also have a real estate associate attorney in Lansing office who will be working with me directly. And if we need additional expertise related to any zoning matters or any special permitting, then we can bring in staff members as needed.
Thank you. Are there, George?
Yeah, just a quick question. So in terms of regular representation, like the day-to-day stuff, if we have an attorney at our meetings, am I understanding that that would be Foster Swift, and we would be bringing in Ron and his team for basically for specific issues related to real estate, like if there's a development agreement or something like that we want to look at? Is that how this is going to work?
Yeah, Adam, you can respond to that.
Correct, George. It'd be similar to the arrangement we had with the previous city attorney. And then the supplemental legal services would come in for those, on a case-by-case basis as needed for those more complex and redevelopment, development-related projects and activities.
Thanks.
Are there additional questions before we act on the motion?
Yeah, Peter, this is Jeff again.
Go ahead, Jeff.
If it puts the DDA's mind at ease at all, we worked with Reshma. She actually represented McLaren in the deal, but rather significantly complex real estate deal for the hospital and the research park. And she was well above excellent in all the process. So if it's any consolation at all.
Appreciate your comments, Jeff. Any other board member comments or questions? Michael?
Yeah, question. So is the idea to bring in Miller Canfield only for what was outlined in the RFQP, or are we able to use them for if the DDA determines we need legal representation separate of that from Foster Swift from the city? Essentially, are we allowed to use them for that as well, or are we just voting on specifically what was outlined in the RFQP?
So as George had indicated, the day-to-day legal needs of the DDA would be addressed by Foster Swift. At the discretion of the DDA, we have the supplemental services of Miller Canfield to assist us. What has been most talked about is with regard to a purchase and sale agreement, real estate matters, the review of development agreements, those types of items. But I believe the intent is that we have the availability to utilize the services of Miller Canfield at the discretion of the DDA going forward. The day-to-day activities would be addressed by Foster Swift. Any additional comments that, Jim?
Yeah, that's my understanding, Peter. So that were the DDA to face an issue where they might have an opinion different from the city itself, then and the board, the DDA, were to feel that it presented not an ethical conflict, but just a business advice conflict or a legal advice conflict where we want to be comfortable when we lay our heads on our pillow that we got impartial advice, which I know Foster would do anyway, and I know Foster would identify if they were in a conflict position. But that allows us to have our own firm in those circumstances.
And that's what I was getting at. I just wanted to make sure we weren't strictly using them only for real estate stuff, but that we could use them for other conflicts of interest potentially as well. So I just wanted to make sure we weren't being maligned into that specifically. So.
Thank you, Michael. Luke, did you have a comment?
Just piggybacking off that, because that was my concern too, because I thought the whole point of this was actually to have a secondary lawyer on hand if there was some sort of conflict of interest, or if we disagreed with city council on matters, or if we needed it. So I wanted to make sure it wasn't just strictly for real estate questions. It sounds a little too narrow.
Right, Luke. And the law school sort of interpretation would be a law firm, and this wouldn't be Foster, but a law firm representing the city is hired by city council or by the city manager. And there could be a view that we're uncomfortable because, they have a $500,000 contract or whatever it is, so that we're the city council members to be united in a position that the particular city law firm might feel loyalty, divided loyalty, and that's sort of the underlying reason why we would want our own counsel in certain circumstances.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Additional questions of staff or additional comments? Adam?
Yes, Chair, I just want to add, in the RFP, it states legal services to be performed on behalf of the DDA include, but may not be limited to, review, draft, and negotiate real estate and development contracts and leases and related transactional documents, advise on real estate, land use, DDA, and BRA legal issues, policies, and negotiations, attend board of directors and committee meetings as necessary, and other legal services as needed. So I think that kind of captures everything we were looking for.
Thank you, Adam. So if there are no other questions, if we could take a roll call vote on the motion, and I think it might be helpful just to reread the motion so everyone's aware. A motion to approve the agreement with Foster, Swift, Collins, and Smith for legal services and direct staff to negotiate an agreement with Miller Canfield for supplemental legal services as outlined in the response to the RFQP, with the modification of their fee for services to $295 per hour, and authorize the chair to execute the agreements as reviewed by council. That's offered by Vice Chair Kroom and supported by myself. Hearing no other comments, let's go ahead with a roll call vote, please.
Dewan?
Yes.
Kroom?
Yes.
Lahanas?
Yes.
Kruger?
Yes.
Alline?
Yes.
Clark?
Yes.
Hackney?
Yes.
Levinson?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Mayor Stevens?
Yes.
Passes 10-0.
Great, thank you. Let's move on to item 7.3, business support funding request. Adam?
Yes, thanks, Chair. Staff is requesting the DDA consider allocating a total of $5,600 to continue the We Have You Covered program and install additional signage for the curbside pickup programs and the Stay Safe to Stay Open campaign. As a reminder, the We Have You Covered program we have ambassadors that are downtown. Originally started as a pilot program that was supposed to end on September 12th. And Thursday through Saturday, 5 to 9 p.m., there's a table tent station in Ann Street Plaza with 2 ambassadors that have masks, hand sanitizers, information on voting and health department, related information to COVID and other MSU information. The purpose is for those ambassadors to be there as a resource for pedestrians. You know, for example, say a visitor comes downtown, forgot their mask. Well, those ambassadors can provide them with a mask free of charge so that they can enter any business and comply with the downtown mask ordinance. And so we're looking to extend that program. Again, it was Thursday to Saturday, 5 to 9. We've extended it to Wednesday to Saturday, 5 to 10 p.m. with 2 ambassadors. And so $4,100 is being requested to continue and expand that program. And then downtown signage and prompts. You know, we started the curbside pickup program in the Bailey parking lot. And what we want to do is enhance that signage, if you will, make it more visible. And so we've come up with a color scheme. We've come up with a design that will really pop out. That signage will be very visible, pop out to the users. It's not green like a lot of the other signage. It'll be pink. We're going to spray paint the parking lines pink as well. And then we want to expand the curbside program into the Valley Court parking lot where there'll be 2 spaces there. And then we are within that $1,500 request. There is money. There's a little bit extra money in case we want to extend that program, expand it again somewhere else within downtown. And then, of course, for additional signage, we're thinking we want to put a very large banner downtown stating the mask requirement to help prompt people and remind them of that requirement in order for us to stay safe and our businesses to stay open. And with that, I can take any questions.
So you have added in the cost of what that banner is in this $5,000 amount?
In the $1,500 amount, yeah. So there's 2 the We Have You Covered is $4,100 request, and then the signage and prompts is a $1,500 request, and that banner is included. Correct.
Okay. Are there any questions? Yes, George?
Just a quick one. We had talked about trying to put like stenciled paint on the sidewalks because people tend to look down but not up. Have we had any success finding anything that would work and then wear off or anything like that?
Yeah, I just tested. We actually received the stencils we ordered. We received them last week. It says wear your mask. And I did a little some test areas last week. And now that we have interns with the DMV, we're going to be getting them out in the next week or so to spray along the perimeter where we installed the permanent signage, and then in strategic spots within the downtown. Heather and I mapped out some areas. We don't want to overwhelm people with the stencil art, but we want to provide them in very strategic places that are going to remind people you need to put your mask on.
Great, thanks.
Thank you. Additional questions?
I think you should overwhelm the crap out of it.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
All right. Well, we'll step up our game then. We'll overwhelm them.
Just as a note, if some of the signage that is going to be placed extra in terms of banner, and I know that probably the designs are already flushed out, but specifically, you know, folks' confusion with still wearing one while they're outside in groups of people, you know, is that distinction that people don't make. So any extra clarification? I know that we're talking about signs here, but is helpful.
Thank you. Definitely. I'm writing that down now.
Thank you, Mayor Stevens. Any additional comments? I would move to approve allocating $5,600 to support the program as recommended by staff, the We Have You Covered program.
Second.
And ask for a second. It's been supported by Mayor Stevens. Any additional comments? Seeing none, let's all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Seeing none, motion passes unanimously. Thank you. let's move on to item 7.4, the concrete pads for our bike loop installation. Adam?
So that's going to be me.
Heather, sorry.
That's okay. So yeah, so I've been working with our downtown DPW department and our parks assistant director of our parks department to add some additional bike loops in the downtown. Adam, can you share the photos on those two items? Right now, we do have a bike rack that has been placed in the Bill Sharp Park, and it sits in the middle of the park, not always easily accessible. And so we would be removing that bike rack and relocating that. But we would then, in exchange, we would be putting some concrete. The first area that we're looking at is this small area. This is an area that we never can grow grass in. And as you know, we have the bike repair station adjacent to this with one bike loop at this time. We thought this made perfect sense to fill in this area. We'll add a couple bike racks there. And then Adam, can you go over to the other slide? Or I should say, yes. So this area is not as large as it looks. It's just how it turned out so I apologize, but it is a larger area. We're looking at placing 11 bike loops here. And again, there's another item coming up further on the agenda about placing a tree here. So there would actually be a tree at the end closest to Abbott Road. And then there would be if the DDA approves that, and then there would be this concrete pad with the bike loops there. So as you know, we came in under budget for our sidewalk projects. So the request is in the amount of $2,850.50 for these two locations. And we could allocate those funds from the $14,678.50 that's been allocated back to the to be determined line items. So and I can answer any questions.
Yeah, Heather, I have a question. I know we had a caller that specifically addressed this item today. Is there a way to add additional bike loops without taking away green space? And are there other things or areas that we can look at?
So we are adding bike loops along Albert Avenue. One of the two things that we will need to be aware of when we add them along Albert Avenue. Albert Avenue was geared to be more of a street that now can be closed off. And you have pedestrians that are able to cross during festivals and that, so there's no curb on the south side of Albert. And so we don't want to put too many items in furniture row is what we call it there. The other thing that prohibits a lot of bike loops through there is that there's the brick pavers, and you cannot attach the surface mounted bike loops that we install throughout the city on brick pavers. So we are adding some bike loops along Albert Avenue there. I've met with Public Works. We've got the area marked out. There'll be some there. And then we're also adding some bike loops. We walk the block off the alley. So if someone wants to ride their bike up to Target, there'll be bike loops along the back of the alley. So we have a large demand for bike parking in the downtown, of course. And so we continue to look at areas that make sense. And so when I reached out to the Parks Department, they thought it made sense to have some bike parking there also. And then the other thing is along Albert Avenue is we have the outdoor dining. And so we really encourage the businesses to use that city's right of way to put their tables outside for outdoor dining during the months from March to November. And again, if they have the outdoor dining in place, there are ADA restrictions and requirements. We have to have a 5-foot pathway. And so in some areas, it would just be prohibited because of the amount of space that would be left. So that's why we're looking at other options.
Is there parking allowed in the new parking, bike parking in the parking deck behind Target? I know, like when you're on the Grove Street ramp, there's the dedicated space for bikes in that parking ramp. Is there a similar type of space in the parking deck that's behind Target?
Not for public. That project does have their own bike room for their tenants. But what we're looking at doing is adding the bike parking along the alley, so that in the alley, that new alley, the parking structure actually cantilevers over the alley somewhat, and there's an area where there's a lot of open space, and so we're going to be placing some bike loops in there. So it's not really a room, and it's just outside of the parking structure itself. I know the caller earlier also suggested about adding bike loops in that pedestrian walkway. And again, you have the pavers and different things in there. There's going to be outdoor seating for Barrio there. So we do want to keep that, that area clean. A lot of times the bikes will sit there for some time. If it's a resident of the downtown, we have a number of residents now. They park their bike at the bike loops, and no difference if they want to, instead of walking to class or riding their bike to class, they walk to class or wherever. So those bikes may sit for some time. And so again, we want to keep that area clear, a pathway, and we don't want bikes just, put out there and then left for a couple months at a time. So, I understand, your concern, Peter, about adding, additional concrete to this area. But we did work this out with the Parks Department, and they agreed that it made sense to have bike parking there.
Yeah, I know you've done an exhaustive review of available spaces for bike loops, so I respect that. Just my own 2 cents, I don't have as much of an objection to adding additional parking for bikes in the little triangle portion of the park. That is, I guess, page 2 of 3, the photograph that you shared. But I just recall how the Sharp Park, a couple of years ago, there was a portion of it carved out to accommodate outdoor dining for the adjacent restaurant, which is beautiful, and it's wonderful in the summertime. It's a nice use of space, but we're kind of carving this very limited patch of earth down to virtually nothing. And so I'm a little bit concerned about, and maybe it is the picture, it's maybe not adequately sharing how large of a space it is, but it just seems like it's taking up a large footprint of the park that exists. So that's my thoughts. I wouldn't want to be as intrusive onto the very small park that we have to begin with in the downtown. George, I think you had a comment?
Yeah, I'm just going to say I agree with you. I'd make a motion if we're ready for a motion to approve the smaller portion next to the bike maintenance, approve that, and then maybe wait on the other and see what the bike parking looks like from MSUFCU and these other places and revisit this in the future. But I was the one who helped come up with the idea to dedicate Sharp Park into the future as a park, and I'm just concerned about letting go to too much green space.
Okay, thank you. Jim?
I support that motion, so it's been moved and supported. I would be uncomfortable carving up the park. It's aesthetically pleasing. It's a valuable small area of park space and what will be surrounded by businesses and residences. And I've been through that park a lot. I just envision more people sitting on that lawn rather than having the bike spaces there. So I agree with George and Peter's comments.
Okay, so we have a motion offered by George, supported by Jim, to allow the triangle portion to be included in a bike pad or bike loop, but not the space that is, I guess, along Albert Avenue. Is that correct?
Well, this would be
the first space is along Abbott. The second is along Albert.
So the second space is actually further back. So it's the back of the park. So it butt up to the parking lot where Musselman Realty is in the back part.
Just the portion adjacent to the bike maintenance. That's the only portion to do, right?
Right, but if you go to the second, that one is along Abbott.
Yep.
Right.
To the second photo. So see where those are there? That's Musselman. That's Musselman's parking lot right behind there. So this is the back side of Bill Sharp.
That's the sidewalk, not Albert.
Correct. This is the sidewalk that leads you up to the fountain heading towards Black Cat Bistro.
Right.
This is the back side, so it's not along Albert.
And more
Right.
like, not on one of the streets.
Correct, it's not on one of the streets.
So I believe that the motion is the triangle portion, the first photograph,
Correct.
to allow that and not to allow it on the other photograph.
All right.
Peter, what is the square footage of that triangular portion?
What is the square footage?
Yeah, I mean, I know it's not, or approximately, how big of a space is that?
It's pretty small. It will accommodate 2 bike loops based on the measurements that we use for placing a bike loop and having bikes at them. So you have, for bike loops, you place them 3 feet apart, and then you want to have a certain amount of space. So we can use some of the space where of the existing concrete there, where the front tire could be over that, and then place the bike loop itself on the new area of the concrete, and then the back tire or vice versa to be on the new area. So we're adding on to that to allow us to have enough space for two additional bike loops.
And a bike loop holds
Additional
one.
bike loops, that means 4 bikes.
Up to 4 bikes. Yeah. Is that what we're looking at right behind the trash can and recycle bin? Then another bike loop. I mean, so it's.
Yes, so it would connect with that.
Are there additional questions of staff before we take action on them?
My only concern with adding bike loops even there is what Heather mentioned before. You end up with derelict bicycles like the ones that are probably viewed in the picture that sit there for extended periods of time. I'm all for bike loops, but there's also maintenance that comes along with it. And I don't know if we have a representative from whoever it is that cuts the locks on these things and finally removes them on the call, but they're a headache. And it's just like anything else. We can install them and it's an amenity, but it also requires an awful lot of maintenance to make sure it doesn't end up becoming a nuisance. So, I'll support the triangle, but I don't think we need to add too many more bike loops along major pathways like this.
Thank you, Jeff. Any additional comments?
I'll be voting no, just because I don't think we should. Almost what Jeff is saying, but I just don't think we should support them at all. I mean, I just see looking at those bikes just laying on the ground behind it doesn't seem too appealing to me, butted right up to the sidewalk.
I just
Okay,
think if you have a place that can't grow grass, you might as well get rid of it. If it looks like the way it looks now, it looks terrible. So might as well put asphalt. I mean, might as well put concrete there and make it better.
I believe Heather had something here.
I just wanted to give you some background. So there is a process when bikes are left unattended. Our police department goes out and does go through and does a sweep of the downtown and tags the bikes. Public Works then comes through, cuts the chains, and then they're removed and they're put out at the impound lot. So there is a process that's in place. We did run into some issues during COVID when the students went home and they left their bikes here, and we're working through those to get those cleaned up. But there is a process in place that the city does do for cleaning up bikes.
And what's the time limit for parking?
Well, what they'll do is they'll walk through to see if it's a bike that's tipped over, if it's got a flat tire, if it's in disrepair, then they'll tag it. And I believe they have, the person has 48 hours, it's tagged, and after 48 hours, Public Works is contacted, they can come out, they can cut the locks at that time, and then the bikes are removed.
So there's no daily or evening parking type thing. Do not leave your bike overnight parking.
No,
like
they
commuter.
could. They could, as long as if Pace walks through and there's a bike and it looks like it's consistently used and it's attached to a bike loop, they're not going to think anything of it. It's when you see the ones that are knocked over, they have flat tires, the rims are bent, it's broken something on them, then they tag them and have them removed. So.
They could be there for some time, Jim. It doesn't happen like instantaneously. It has to look abandoned.
Correct.
So that's why I agree strongly with Heather that they shouldn't go underneath the target, in front of the target, because it just creates a visual eyesore, and it's such a nice area under there. I wouldn't want to do that.
This is Jeff, if I may, Peter.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, I'd like to address the kind of the alleyway parking for bike loops as well. I believe Grove Street ramp has a handle on, or at least has a number of bike loops in the lower level as you're leading from one side to the other of that first floor of the ramp. If you're a frequent traveler through that section, you'd realize very quickly that it impedes the flow of traffic. It also becomes a little bit of an eyesore for the bikes that are left behind, or mopeds that are left behind, or whatever it is that might be left behind. I would strongly disagree completely with putting any bike loops underneath the pedestrian pathway leading to the backside of Target in any way.
Thanks. Any other comments? All right, so we have the motion offered by George and supported by Jim to allow a bike pad to continue along in the triangular photo and not the other. Is there anything else that we need to address, or can we go ahead with the vote? All right, Heather, why don't we just do a roll call on that?
Dewan?
No.
Broom? Broom? You're muted. I'll come back. Lahanas?
Yes.
Kruger?
No.
Ballline?
No.
Clark?
Yes.
Hackney?
No.
Levinson?
No.
Smith?
No.
And Mayor Stevens.
Yes.
It looks like Jim's back.
Kroom, your vote on this motion?
Yes.
Okay. The motion failed 6-4.
Okay. All right, thank you. I guess based upon the vote, Heather, it implies that the DDA wants to look at other options other than perhaps at this location. So maybe that's something that we can evaluate in future conversations.
Okay.
All right. We'll move on to item 7.5, the 314 Evergreen Property Management Agreement.
Yes. So included in your packet was the property management agreement for 314 Evergreen with Crone Management. They have managed this property for us for several years. The management contract just has a few changes, one's being the date. If you recall, we did do a 1-month extension of their current agreement, which will now expire on September 30th, 2020. So this contract would be from October 1st, 2020 to August 31st, 2021. What we did go through and clean up is there was some of the sentences read agreement instead of contract. And so we've changed that out throughout the document to make it consistent. And the other item is that they are proposing a increase of $5 per hour for a maintenance labor rate from going to $50 to $55 per hour. And that covers everything. And then for the hourly grounds rate, which is going from $30 to $35 an hour. And that's here for discussion, and I can answer any additional questions.
So what's prompting the change in the rate that's charged? And what will the net result be anticipated over the annual length of the contract?
Just the cost of staff and the time to manage the property, So it's just an increase. They had requested one in the past that was denied, and so they kept their rate the same, and now they've come back and asked for an increase at this point. So and it lines up with similar to what we're paying on the other properties. So with our other management agreement. So.
Okay. Do you have an estimate of what the net result will be on an annual basis?
It just depends on the type of maintenance. If if there is a lot of maintenance, we'll see there'll be a slight increase. If it's the property, or we'll see a larger increase. But if the property is status quo and there's not too many, problems with it, then the increase wouldn't be very much. So it's just hard to say what that may be.
Okay. I don't think it's terribly unreasonable. I'll support the motion to amend the contract as drafted and ask for a second.
Second.
It's been seconded by Mayor Stevens. Any additional conversation? Hearing none, if we could just go ahead with another roll call vote on this item.
Dewan,
Yes.
Broom,
Yes.
Mohammed,
Yes.
Kruger,
Yes.
Ballline,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Hackney,
Yes.
Levinson,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Stevens.
Yes.
Thank you. That's been approved. Let's move on to item 7.6. Consideration for funding for tree planting in the Downtown Development Authority District. Heather?
Yes, so we've been gifted 4 trees, and our Parks Department and our planning staff approached me about seeing if there were some areas we thought the trees could be planted throughout the downtown, and if the DDA was supportive of this, if we could split the cost of that. So the 4 there, Adam, can you bring up the locations on that where they'll be planted? So this is that area that was marked out where the proposed bike concrete pad was going to be, but this green area is where the 1 tree would go. This is along the 500 block Bailey parking lot. So just north of the parking lot there. And then there's 2 along Grand River in the median. We have already several trees planted. This would be MAC right across from Potbellies. Public Works is requesting that the DDA split the cost. So the DDA's portion would be $864.20 for the planting of those 4 trees. The maintenance and the other cost in the maintenance would be provided by Public Works. And that's here for your discussion.
Can I move approval?
It's been moved by George, supported by Luke to move approval. I just have a general question. Is this customary for the DDA to share in the expense with Public Works on tree plantings in the city, or only the occasions when it's in the downtown in our district?
Just in the DDA district, we haven't done any tree plantings in several years unless it was tied to a specific project that was then the developer's responsibility. So that's why they're looking for it to share the cost.
Okay.
This is Jeff, Peter.
Yeah, Jeff, go ahead.
So are we hearing this correctly, that these are $1,700 free trees? I'm not sure who we got the gift of trees from. But are they
Abbott Development? I'm sorry, Jeff.
Okay.
Abbott Development has gifted the 4 trees to the city to plant wherever.
Okay.
And so
are the trees worth the $1,700 installation?
Yes, they're very nice trees. Yes, Darcy Schmidt, who's one of our landscape architects, worked with Kathy DeChambeau, who's the administrator for our Parks Department, who does all the tree plantings through the city, and they thought it was a very good deal. They're nice.
What type of trees are they?
They're autumn blaze maples. And they're a good sized tree to start out with. So we were limited in the locations where they could be placed in the downtown just due to the size of them already. So they're a nice hardy tree.
Thank you, Heather.
Thank you. Any additional comments? All right, well, we have Michael, go ahead.
It's safe to assume that includes the care for them going forward and making sure that they're going to be sustainable for the next however many years that they take. Yeah.
Yep, the Parks Department will be maintaining them.
Okay. So it's been moved and supported to allow the share in the expense of the planting of the trees. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion passes unanimously. Thank you. I don't believe we have any items on our agenda that are unfinished that we need to address. Committee reports, we'll move on. Exec and finance is principally, well, actually, we didn't have an exec and finance meeting. It had to be canceled. Luke, do you want to speak to public policy and market development?
Yeah, I think we've actually covered everything that we discussed of relevance, and we talked a lot about the masks and things like that in the downtown.
Okay, thank you, Luke. P&I, we didn't have a meeting. That was also canceled. Luke, how about the parking task force?
Haven't met during the pandemic.
Okay, thank you. And Jim, downtown management board?
Yeah, thank you, Peter. We are meeting tomorrow at 2 p.m. to hear pitches from public relations firms for development of a campaign that will propose and promote safe practices for patrons and merchants downtown. This is a follow-up to some of the cash that has been allocated kindly by the DDA to the Downtown Management Board. And it's the board's view that we need to take a professional approach to reopening and encouraging downtown usage, and that the campaign is important. So we're hearing pitches to get an idea of pricing and ideas and so on. The allocation's initially set for $10,000. We're also contributing $3,000 towards the downtown business support activities, the Together We'll Stay Safe and Stay Open campaign and the signage, and allocated $2,000 to planning and carrying out a virtual downtown Halloween event. We obviously can't do the wildly popular normal Halloween event for the community, but we're looking at alternatives. So thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Jim. Any board member comments or concerns, announcements?
Peter, this is Jeff.
I have one question for staff, and it relates, and it's an odd time to ask it because downtown usage is down, and I know that we use porta potties during football and other athletic events, and that there's a negative view of public restrooms in the parking structures. I thought it was on a website, it might have been Traverse City's DDA, where there was a allocation to certain businesses, like 5 or 6 businesses. And I'm wondering if that was to allow public usage of bathrooms. You go into businesses and you see, you can't use this unless you're a customer. Does staff have any experience in that area, or is there a need for, would it help downtown development and the downtown area if there was something like that?
I don't have experience with that, but I certainly see the benefits of modeling something after that approach. Yeah, and would definitely be more than willing to do some research on that.
Yeah, that'd be great. Maybe if you could report back, and maybe we could give it to a committee, because it might be an elegant response if the business is willing to keep it clean and receive some money rather than building bricks and mortar.
Yeah, I agree.
Thank you, Jim. I think, Jeff, do you have a comment as well?
Yeah, I was just going to address the call from earlier about the Citadel project and making sure that we get enough information ahead of time. I just wanted to ask the staff if we've received any additional requests or inquiries about that site from any other developers other than River Caddis.
Not that I am aware of. Heather, are you aware of any other requests?
Thank you.
Nope.
Any additional questions or comments?
Yeah, real quick,
Go ahead, Luke.
just thought I'd acknowledge that I'm pretty sure it's Mike's and Greg's birthday today, so happy birthday to you both.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Well,
Thank you, guys.
Great day, Greg and
Thank
Mike.
you.
Peter? Oh, God.
Any additional announcements or comments?
Do you mind if I
Yeah.
say something really quick?
Go ahead, Mayor Stevens.
I am not on the downtown management board, and I will relay this to Jesse. If there's any way for staff and or DMB or other folks to maybe even provide like paper graphics on, and this is just pointed out to me by a couple of members in the community, which I thought made a lot of sense. Most of the businesses have signs that say, of course, please enter a mask while wearing, while entering. Of course, not making the distinction that we have a mask order in downtown now that includes outdoors. So if there could be any possibility of, maybe providing signs to, whether that's just printed, off on regular paper that say, please wear a mask indoors and outdoors in the downtown area. Just because, many of those signs just say, when you're entering our business, which makes, sense that they're putting those up, but providing that might be good for them.
Yes, Mayor. We originally, we had the signs designed and we distributed them before that mask ordinance went in place. And since then we have a redesign saying masks required downtown, inside and outdoors. And we can certainly, it's within our budget that the DDA has allocated. We can certainly print more and distribute those to the downtown businesses, as well as provide them with a digital graphic as well.
Okay, great. Well, then that answers my question. Thank you very much.
Yes,
Thank you, Mayor Stevens and Adam, for your response. Any additional comments, concerns? Hearing none, I move to adjourn the meeting and ask for support. A second. It's been supported. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Meeting's adjourned. Thank you. Can we start maybe in about 5 minutes on the brownfield?
Yes, that would be good.
Take a little break here.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. See.